you're doing a lot of phenomenal things across the country. Tell us about your organization.
The Community and College Partners Program, or C2P2, is a nonprofit organization that was created to provide pro bono technical assistance to poor and underserved communities. If you've got a bad sewage plant, you want to repair it or replace it, you can't go after the grant if you don't know what it's going to cost, what it's going to look like, what it's going to take to replace that. Small, poor communities don't have those kind of resources in their community, and they can't afford to pay for it. So C2P2 was created to provide those technical resources and services to those communities on a pro bono basis. Today's college students are incredibly smart, incredibly talented, and really passionate about doing things that make a difference in the world. So we work with over 70 colleges throughout the country, mostly seniors and graduate students, to get them to put their education to work, to let them use what they've learned to work on projects in communities that desperately need their help, to know that they're making a difference in the world, to get class credit for the work that they're doing. The American Geophysics Union Thriving Earth Exchange, they have what they call a cadre of volunteer students, young professionals actually, that volunteer to do these projects, up to 50 a year. We partner with them, and they're actually engaged in 3 of our projects, one in Louisiana, one in the Bahamas, and they just completed one in Alaska. We work with the Environmental Defense Fund, who provided resources to help cover the cost of student trips, to cover the cost of some of my trips. We work with the National Wildlife Foundation because we understand that we want to protect the natural resources, not just for ourselves, but for our children and our grandchildren. We want them to enjoy a world that we enjoy. People like the climate equity, people like Engineers Without Borders, who have agreed to sign and seal drawings, design drawings pro bono. That's huge for small communities. They no longer have to try to figure out, how do I pay an engineer to sign and seal the drawings that the students did? We're getting them to do that, and do that on a pro bono basis. So
you're the CEO and the founder of this organization. What made you say, I want to go out and I want to help all these communities across the country?
So I was in a meeting in Alabama, and mayor in Hayville, Alabama, small city in Lowndes County, Alabama, talked about, she said, I've got a bad sewage plant, I've got a bad water plant, I've got bad roads, but I don't know how to apply for the funds I need to be able to get these things corrected. And there's some really cool schools, that are not too far from here. You got Alabama State, you've got Tuskegee, so these schools might be able to help, but we were able to, get schools to agree to give students that experiential learning opportunity, because they know that the good schools knew it keeps kids in school, it gets them to graduation, and it gets them better jobs when they graduate.
How has it helped some of those students?
So I got emails from students at Clark Atlanta who worked on a project in Lithonia, and they said, Mr. Burns, the experience of working on your project and working with you gave me the confidence when I sat down in that interview that it wasn't about, I think I can do this job, is that I knew I could do the job. We had some other students work on a cybersecurity training plan for the city of East Point at Georgia State, where 7 different students, all 7 of them when they graduated, all got great jobs, and they all cited the fact that they had worked on that project as a factor in getting the job.
But you're also working with Purdue University on a project all the way down in Louisiana.
Absolutely, that's a great project.
C2P2 works in a number of areas. You work in the environmental area, you work in the broadband area, you work on resources and also energy. Can you talk about each of those things and why those things are important to your organization?
Well, just because people are poor doesn't mean they're done and they we know that underserved communities and poor communities, they know where they want to go. They just need help to get there. The project I mentioned earlier about Louisiana, that's a climate change project. From 2010 to 2020, they had 2 hurricanes come through there. From 2020 to 2022, they've had 8. That's climate change. And this gentleman gave up his regular job, started a nonprofit on his own, him and his wife, and wanted to create an urban farm to teach poor neighborhoods in Philadelphia how they could grow their own food, and not only teach them to grow food, but serve as a living laboratory for neighborhoods moving forward. That kind of thing needs support, and to design an alternative energy project for his greenhouse and other structures that reduces his costs and allows him to continue to do the good work that he's doing. In Alaska, we were working with an indigenous community in Alaska. These people in this village in Tyannut, Alaska, live in homes that are 50 years old. They were built in California with no insulation. So we're talking about homes that are 50 years old with no insulation in Alaska. Their primary source of energy is heat. So in the winter, their energy bills can be $750 a month, and the median income is $22,000 a year. A lot of people don't even use the heat all in the winter. They'll sleep with blankets and coats on because they can't afford to pay the electrical bill. So we decided, okay, let's do an alternative energy project for them that helps, mitigate the cost of electricity.
How do you make the connection between Georgia and Alaska? What drove your desire to fly to Alaska to help with this particular situation?
We agreed to make a visit, which, the Environmental Defense Fund paid for. It was Drexel University and the Environmental Defense Fund. It started out with an energy project. We now have the University of Florida designing new housing for them. Mm-hmm. We have Georgia Tech designing a cultural experience center for them. We're going to have probably Alabama A&M's urban planning students to do a land use plan for them. So, didn't know we'd be doing 4 projects when we got there, but the need is great, and we've got some fantastic partners that have agreed to help. And as one woman from the village told me after we briefed the project, she said to me, because we gave her a presentation, and afterwards we were talking to people, and she came up to me and she said, you give us hope.
Speak more about the Georgia Tech connection to your Alaska project.
Well, the Georgia Tech connection is pretty interesting because I've done 3 great projects with Georgia Tech, and they've all been in communities of color. The first project they did was with the city of Lithonia to take a look at some air quality issues and to map out the areas of the city where, air quality was an issue. The second project, which was incredible, was for the city of Selma. The city of Selma was concerned that the Alabama River was eroding the structural supports to the Pettus Bridge. The Corps of Engineers has a program where they can address that, but it requires a 20% match. The city didn't have the 20% match. So we got the University of Georgia Tech to actually do a 80-page feasibility study on the issue, why it's important, how to address it, some recommendations, and that feasibility study, because we are able to place a dollar value on all the work that the schools do. That study was so good that we were able to give it to the city. So we attached a numerical value to it, gave it to the city of Selma. They went to the Corps of Engineers, and it was so good that they accepted that as a 20% match, actually used that as a starting point for the program. It's interesting that every project they've done has been in a community of color. They have been lights out on everything I've ever asked them to do, and in fact, the students working on it, which are all master's students, have told other master's students, and I'm now getting calls if I want to do other projects. So it's it's really gratifying to see how much the students love the work and how the schools see the value of giving them knowledge.